Okay, I know what you're thinking. Oh, I don't like plugins. I just like tube amps. Well, for the purpose of this video, do me a favor. Just turn off that part of your brain that has that kind of macho attitude and listen with your ears, because I think you will be surprised and honestly, you'd be missing out on something really, really cool. Today, guys, we are going to look at the Mercurial Audio Ampbox 1987X SG plugin. And trust me, this one rocks. Just before we get started, as always, I wanted to mention all my reviews are completely independent. I don't want any BS on this channel, so no one tells me what to say. You guys know that 90% of the stuff that I review, I buy with my own money because I think that it's stuff that you guys will want to hear and will want to see. And it's generally stuff that I'm interested in and that I want to try out because I'm like you, a guitar geek. I love things, but I'm always scared because there is a lot of crap. There's all this marketing stuff that you cannot know what is what. And a lot of those reviews online and a lot of those reviews, unfortunately, on YouTube are just marketing stunts. And I don't want to do that. So for this plugin, I originally started playing the demo version. I then realized that obviously to review it fully, I had to get the real thing. I sent the Mercurial Audio guys an email just to see if they were willing to send it across. And I've got to say, they were really nice. They sent it immediately, but that's it. We had no conversation after that. I just told them I was going to do a impartial review of it because I was interested. I think with plugins, it's often an easy route for me to be able to reach out to the company and they just send me the thing. We've had no conversation since. They didn't ask me to do anything. So it's all from here. And hopefully you guys will get a good feel of whether it's right for you and what it sounds like. And if you don't like what it sounds like, it's not the company's fault. It's not really my fault. It's just maybe that it's not suited for you. So before you start screaming in the comments, that's the beauty of music. Something is for you, something is not. We all have different ears. We all have different tastes. So let's keep going. Let's not waste any time. Let's get stuck in there. As you can probably tell, is inspired by the incredible Marshall amps of the 70s, of the early 80s, and specifically the ones that went down in rock history because they were modded by José Arredondo. The José modded Marshall is a piece of history, as you guys may know. I'm not going to go too much into the detail of what it is because you know what? Just Google it. It's a really interesting read, and also there's some schematics up there, and there's a great video by Pete Thorne on this subject, so go check that out as well. But basically, when we're talking about a José modded Marshall, we are talking extra gain stage, we are talking tweaked kind of EQ, a master voluming for the early plexis that didn't have that. So all those extra features that players at the time were really, really craving. We're talking 80s, we're talking massive stacks of amps. We're talking the beginning of 80s thrash metal. We are talking people that want extra gain and extra punch and to be able to just bring those Marshalls into a higher gain territory. Okay, so first things first, let's have a really quick look at the plugin itself. And it's a very, very intuitive interface, really cool. As we'll look at in a few minutes, you will have to purchase this amp separately, but that's the kind of ecosystem that the Ampbox has. So let's dive into it now. So for those of you that are not familiar with the Ampbox suite, basically the concept is really simple. You have a framework within which you need to buy individual amps in it. Currently, they have a number of amps available, not that many, but they have a Euphoria, a Reaxis, a Recto, a 6160, which is obviously something to do with EVH, I'm guessing. They have also Bogner amp, and the 1987X SG is the brand new amp that you are able to purchase for this. So really quickly, in case you guys don't know, but again, drop me a message in the comment section if you want a further kind of deep dive into the Mercurial Ampbox suite, and we can definitely get that done. But basically what happens is you have all the usual things that you'd expect in a really complete plugin. So you have all the effects at the beginning, you have a gate, a noise gate there, you have all the dynamic section, so a comp, graphic EQ before the amp, then you have a wah, so you can connect it via MIDI to an external wah pedal. Then you have a really cool series of overdrives. You have the Green Smasher and the SD1, and they all kind of look like their real world counterparts, so it won't be too difficult to know what they do. After that, you have the distortion section, which again is pretty damn cool. First one is the Rat, then you have a Metal Arena, a DS1. Again, great graphics, they look like the real life counterpart. And finally, we move on to the preamp section, which is what I talked about before with the various amps. So currently we're in the 1987. After that, you have the power amp section, which you don't really have a choice, but you do have the possibility, however, to turn it on and off. Then you have the really cool cabinet section. And I think the cabinet section, again, is one of those things that either you do it right and it really, really makes the plugin, or you do it wrong and it completely destroys all the hard work that whoever's put into it. Because the cabinet section here is done really well. So you have a 2D cab section, which is essentially like a dynamic cab section where you can move the microphones around like you do on a lot of these plugins. So around the cone, the cap, etc., the various distance, you have 2 mics available, and you get an SM57, a Royer 121, an MD441, and the same thing for mic 2. You can decide whether you want just 1 mic, 2 mics, and balance them out. But the really cool thing that they have here is they also have an IR section, and the IR section comes preloaded with tons of IRs, and that is really, really cool. You don't usually get these many IRs, and I've got to say, they sound quite good. So really nice to have these, from Friedman's to Messrs to Marshall's, SLO, the whole lot. You've got a specific one by Sergey for the 1987, which is really, really cool. And then you have the IR reverb, so the convoluted reverb section, where again you can choose the reverb to blend in to the IR. So the IR section, the cabinet section, is very complete. Finally, after that, quickly, you have the parametric EQ. So after the cab, You have a modulation section where you can choose various modulations like the chorus pitch shifter, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a brand new addition as well. Then you have the delay section, so a delay, and finally a reverb. It's a really quite complete suite. You have a very, very good tuner here, which is cool to have. And finally, you have all your factory presets at the top. So for the 1987, you have tons of presets if you just want to start off with the presets, which is basically what I do with every amp sim I use. I just go with a preset and see what other people have initially set it up like. So if we very, very quickly have a look at just the plugin itself, this is the amp. Graphics really, really nice. It's fairly self-explanatory, obviously, what the amp is. You get the addition of kind of the José mods here. So you have that extra gain stage. You have the master volume as well, which is really, really cool. And it's very authentic. So the preamp is on and off here. So if you want to turn it off for whatever reason, the power amp, if you want to use an external plugin like 2 notes, whatever, you can turn that on and off and just use the pre section. Then you have master, presence, bass, middle, treble, high treble, which is the first gain stage essentially. And that's really what gives you that punch and that bite. So it reacts really quite authentically, actually. If you've ever played a proper plexi José mod kind of amp or emulation of it, it's really in between how those two gain stages react to each other and how you can blend it differently, make it slightly darker. There's people that put the high and the normal gain stage quite low. It depends how you like it, your setup, etc. Then you've got the inputs like the original, so input 1, input 2, or the ability, which is what most rockers did to jump them to get it even higher up. Then there's a famous pre-gain knob here, which is where it adds really that punch and that over distortion that everyone was looking for in the 80s. So, and that's really what gives this amp the versatility. That's it, guys. Nothing more to see on the kind of plugin. So let's move on. What you heard during the intro of this video and throughout are some little sound samples that I did in the mix, because really this amp shines when it's in the mix because it cuts through really, really well. Another thing I was concentrating on for you guys is to really just show you how incredibly versatile it is. It's not just a rock amp. Blues, you can do all sorts of stuff with this. And did I hear you say, will it do something even heavier than rock? Well, check this out. As you can see, it does push into that high gain territory and it sings. Obviously, guys, we're talking about 80s thrash metal, 80s metal. You're not talking about something in 2024 type music with super, super djenty sounds. But if you're looking for that original metal sound, this has it in spades. I mean, James Hetfield famously had this kind of amp. As I said, it doesn't only do the heavy stuff, it is really responsive, and it allows you, with all those extra features, to really dial in a more mellow, a slightly sweeter sound. Okay guys, as always with my reviews, let's talk about its pros and cons, whether you should buy it, and my final thoughts if you guys care. Just my opinion, so that's the beauty of it. Remember that before you go ballistic in capital letters in the comments. It's my opinion. We just all hear things differently, depends on what guitars, what styles, etc. So hopefully this will be able to help you make a slightly better informed decision. So let's break it down with the pros first. I've got to say, I had loads of fun playing this plugin. I really like the simplicity of the Ampbox kind of ecosystem, first of all, because you're not overloaded with stuff. You're not endlessly going through menus. It's just really simple. You pick the amp that you want. If you just want to buy one of their amps, you have just that one amp. So you don't need to get, 3 million different amps. You just buy one of them. The interface is really simple. Everything pops up in the same screen, so it doesn't kind of shift over. You don't waste time. Really intuitive. The amp itself is very simple. You have complete control over all the dials, so it's very easy to just tweak it on the go, even when you're playing by your computer. So personally, massive thumbs up for the ease of use of the interface. Then we have to talk about the sound. So if you like that kind of sound, because there's always a premise, right? If you want a Fender sound, if you want a Mesa sound, those are radically different. But if you like the Marshall, the old school Marshall sound, this does it very well. It's very similar, I want to say, to the UEFX Lion pedal that I reviewed a few weeks ago. I think I'll put the link somewhere here if you guys are interested. It's actually very similar to that in terms of quality and in terms of sound. What's really nice is also that it has, and it kind of mimics those characteristics that make those amps very particular. So the fact that you have the two gains and you need to balance them out, so the higher frequency and the lower frequency, really interesting. At the same time, having the master volume helps a lot. So very good in terms of the sound. The feel, I've got to say, Mercurial is one of those companies that sure make plugins that feel good. So when you're playing, it actually feels spongy, it feels good. So they do great feeling amps as well as sounding amps. In terms of the cabinet sections, as you guys know, I always keep ranting on the fact that a plugin is good if the cabinet, if the IRs are good. And I'm a massive fan of Two Notes. I'm a massive fan of Celestion, the IRs and the DSRs by Celestion, and Speaker Mix Pro generally as a plugin. But in this case, I actually didn't use it because I wanted to give a fair chance to what Mercurial are adding to this. And I've got to say they are adding quite a lot. So in terms of the two decavs that they give you, fairly standard, so limited options, two mics, you can't double anything. You've got the kind of fact that you can move them around. It's not like, I think, at the top in that level. I think Two Notes, I think Celestion are still way up. But where Mercurial did a really good job is to preload it with tons of very high quality normal IRs. And those are the ones that I kind of gravitated to. They added a massive list of IRs, some specific to the amp that you're playing. So in this case, there was a specific 1987 one by Sergey. Very good sounding IR. So I really like that, and the fact that you can blend in the reverb to make it slightly less dark. Overall, really good. I didn't find the need to add an extra plugin. So well done again on that. Final point on the pros, and I'm kind of in between two minds whether it's a pro or a con or somewhere in between. We need to talk about the price. So the price for this one amp is, I think, $89.99, so just under $90. The Ampbox Universe ecosystem obviously comes free, so you get the pedals, you get all the latest additions, I believe, with the 1987 amp. They've also added another micro shift pedal as well in there. So that's for free. What you're paying for is the actual amp section. And if I think price comparison, $90 for that, it's not bad. It's not a bad price because, guys, ultimately you're getting a really good sounding plugin. You're getting a really great sounding amp with the added bonus of some effects, EQs, IRs, blah, blah, blah. So it's a decent price. I would say it's a reasonable price for what it is compared to the quality, because it is very good quality. If they did a hardware version of this in a little pedal with all those features, it would probably be a lot more expensive. So for me, ultimately, the price is very good. And now we've got to move on to the cons, right? Because that's where you guys have fun. So let's go to the cons. First of all, and this is kind of a geeky, techie thing, but because we're talking about a plugin, we've got to talk about it. Maybe it's my machine, but overall, I find this to be a little CPU heavy. So for example, if I added too many tracks with the plugin, the whole thing would go crazy and would freeze. It's not one of the lightest plugins to have. Definitely, I A/B'd it with some other ones, and this one's very, very kind of hungry on your CPU, on your memory, etc. So one thing to bear in mind, if you don't have a very powerful PC, Mac, whatever it is, you might have some problems running more than a couple tracks on with this plugin on it. So if you record your stuff at home, you might have to render it first, etc. But again, it is what it is, and it does depend on your computer's spec. Second con, which you guys, again, just need to be aware of. Obviously, it's not going to be the first thing you look for, is the limited amount of clean tones that maybe you can get. Ultimately, you don't get these amps for clean tones. Historically, Marshall amps aren't the best for clean tones, and this one's no different. You won't get modern, very bright, really clean tones. You won't get any of that. You can definitely shape it accordingly and shape your sound accordingly. So put the master up, which is, again, one of the main advantages of having a master volume. Turn the other gains down and kind of play with the EQ. But again, you'll always get a little bit of a hint of overdrive, of a slight distortion going. That's just the nature of the beast, but you guys just have to be aware of it. Third and final con, which isn't really specific to this amp, but goes with the whole Ampbox plugin, is the fact that you may find that the effects, the overdrives, etc. are a bit limited. Obviously, you can use other plugins for that, but it doesn't really make sense, especially if we said that it is quite CPU hungry. So some people, if you rely heavily on lots of effects, or you want fuzz pedals, different kinds of delays, the amp suite might be slightly limiting because it doesn't have all those. You know, I think you have 2 overdrives, you have 3 distortions. So it's not the widest variety that you can get. I mean, personally, I was fine with it, but it's just one to mention because you guys are spending $90 on this. And I do think that you need to be aware that the list of effects isn't the biggest that you can get. There are some other plugins that give you a wider range of effects. But again, it's really about a choice and kind of what you prioritize, what you put first on your list. Do you want those amp sounds? Then this is definitely very good. The amp quality is fantastic and the cab quality is fantastic. Do you want a bigger ecosystem with bigger, you know, effects, blah, 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 to get more ambient sounds? Then maybe it's not the best plugin for you. So that leads us nicely to whether you should buy this plugin, and we'll end up with my final thought. Should you buy this? If you're a beginner, if you're even an intermediate or someone that records at home in a studio, I think this is a really, really convenient plugin to have because you don't have to, you know, spend tons of money on amps or, you know, UEFX Lion or a Friedman preamp or whatever it is. this kind of gets you there and it actually sounds really, really authentic. Let's be honest, how many of us are going to play a José modded Marshall? Definitely not me. So those people that kind of go, it's a plugin, doesn't make sense to me, because, well, go out and buy yourself a José modded amp. Done, sorted. If you're that cool and have that kind of cash, or have that availability and have the space and room and can crank the thing, then fine, go get it. But for us normal people, this does it very, very well. This is a very, very good plugin. And also, as you heard, I played most of those, samples and songs in the mix with, remember, no post EQ, no messing about like some people do afterwards to make it sound good. That's what it sounds like. And I did that specifically because whilst I was playing it, it was one of the plugins that I found sounds really good in a mix. Some, in my experience, are more geared towards when you're just playing by yourself, right? Playing there, and I don't mean that in a rude way. You're just playing there with earphones and they sound fantastic. But that sound doesn't always translate in the mix, because in the mix you have bass, you have the drum frequencies, if you've got keyboards, whatever it is, and they're very different beasts. So this one, I think, really shines in the mix. And that's why I think it's a very, very good plugin for someone who records at home, if you're running your own studio, or if you just like to record your guitars in a mix with other people. This plugin fits really nicely in there because it cuts through. You can hear all the sounds. You don't need to EQ the hell out of it to make it stand out. So I found that it was really almost a ready mixed plugin. So overall, what are my final thoughts? I think the 1987X SG is probably, if not the best, definitely a contender for one of the best Marshall, that era Marshall plugins I've heard. As I said, I really highly rate the UA plugins and the UEFX pedals, and this really reminded me of the Lion. Very good sound, really original, reacts in all the right ways. They modeled it perfectly well. It's flexible. It does, within that kind of sound, all the right things. So I'm very impressed with this plugin. I definitely think it has something to offer if you are into early metal, if you're blues, if you're rock, if you're all those kind of sounds and you want your guitar to sound slightly different to what modern music is like. This nails that perfectly well. So I find it really, really interesting, and it's a nice way to reach those tones without spending too much money. Overall, I highly recommend you guys trying it out. You can go on the Mercurial Audio website. For some reason, I can't say anyways, their website, and download a demo version of it. Try it out, see if you like it. And if you do, I think you should get it because it's a good plugin. So that's it, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Keep subscribing, commenting, doing all that, because we're on a roll here. And I really want to bring you loads of new things. And it does help me. I'm going to put all the links to the 1987X SG in the description. And as always, let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think it sounded good? Do you guys play any of the other amps within the Ampbox series? As far as I've heard and as far as I've read on various forums, each amp they release is getting better and better. So it does excite me to see what else they're going to release. I would love a Fender. Come on, give it a try. So there you go. Thank you again for watching. I hope you guys are good. As always, be nice to each other. It's a wonderful world we live in. Let's just all get along, be very nice, and keep playing guitar because music is beautiful. Let's do it.